Well, is this, hello. I intended to start with a song, and I will, but I thought I should say hello first. My name's Neil Dale, and I'm going to be giving a presentation today. Happy Earth Day, or happy day after Earth Day. This song is called Start From Here. I never had a banana until I lived in Africa. I never had a strawberry until I went to France. I don't know where the grocery stores get all the junk they're selling us, but when you taste the real thing, you will just get up and dance. Oh, thank you, mama, thank you, mama, thank you. Thank you for the butterflies and thank you for the deer. Thank you for the open road and for the legs to walk it with. No matter where you want to go, you'll want to start from here. I never ate a potato until I ate one in Peru. I never smelled a rose until I traveled to Iran. We got to clean our basements of the hatred and the ignorance, and the lovers and the healers are all doing what they can. Oh, thank you, mama, thank you, mama, thank you. Thank you for the butterflies and thank you for the deer. Thank you for the open road and for the legs to walk it with. No matter where you want to go, you'll want to start from here. If they're standing up in China, we must be upside down in Boston. When they're waking up in India, they're fast asleep in Spain. Bacteria are everywhere in oceans and intestines. They sail up in the summer skies and then they make it rain. Oh, thank you, mama, thank you, mama, thank you. Thank you for the butterflies and thank you for the deer. Thank you for the open road and for the legs to walk it with. No matter where you want to go, you'll want to start from here. I'll probably never hear the sound of rain in Indonesia, and I don't need to see it all, she's here in every part. I'm singing in a symphony with Mother Earth conducting. I don't have far to look for her, she beats time in my heart. Oh, thank you, mama, thank you, mama, thank you. Thank you for the summer skies and thank you for the deer. Thank you for the open road and for the legs to walk it with. No matter where you want to go, you'll want to start from here. Thank you. And thank you for the people who came live today. I think more people are online, but it's so great to have a live audience today. And it's really, just a few friends is really great. Thank you. So I'm here today for an idea. It's in almost every song that I sing. It's also why I write and perform music. But it's not a religious belief. I'm not trying to induce you into goddess worship. I've been singing these songs in the open mic that's here on Sunday afternoons, and if you've been coming to that, you'll be hearing some songs again today, but this time you'll be hearing, as Paul Harvey said, the rest of the story. I studied geology in college, and after much research and thought, I've come to the beginning understanding that Earth is indeed a living being, just like you and me, or a bacterium or an oak tree, and for the same reasons. I'm going to be talking about this idea today, as well as singing, and if you have a question, you can ask me when I'm talking, not when I'm singing. Or we can talk afterwards if you like. But before I go too far, I'd like to thank my guitar teacher, Mark Stunkel, who has stuck with me for 9 years now and has helped me find all my songs on the guitar. The story of the living Earth is a very long story, even before the origin of our solar system. And I wrote a book called Who is the Earth that follows that story. You can find it on my website or at whoistheearth.com, along with music videos, a blog, and references. But I know that most people don't have the patience to read or listen to long scientific argument. The good news is I don't think most people need to know all the nuts and bolts of the ecological evidence. It's like doctors are expected to know how our bodies work, but you don't have to know how someone's liver works in order to know them as a person. A relationship with another person comes much more naturally. But you do have to know that they are there, and you have to turn your eyes towards where they are, and you have to give them the possibility of existing. Now, I think that's even a problem with sometimes with other people. But if we do this with nature as a whole, then there's the possibility of a moment of awareness or even a conversation with this larger entity. Native Americans have often been given this knowledge from birth, and they work with it throughout their lives. But in our culture, we have not, and so we cannot see it as adults. I'll flip around a story that you may have heard about Native Americans on a beach centuries ago who apparently simply couldn't see the ships of some European explorer because the huge ships were so completely outside of their experience. Well, a Native American might turn that story around to explain why we, in our culture, simply cannot see the being of the living Earth. We simply have no experience of it. This is a song about a chief of the Nimipu people we call the Nez Perce in the Pacific Northwest. We called him Chief Joseph. I use his native name in the song, or at least I try to. But native names are often given more as a description of who someone deeply is, or even their role in society. And the meaning of his name, Hinmatu Yayaletkit, is something like rolling thunder from across the water. And that's a beautiful name. But it's also an image of a very big message coming from nature. He was one of several chiefs. He wasn't a war chief, actually, but he was one of several chiefs who led about 300 men, women, and children in a rebellion against the theft of their land back in the 1860s. They beat the American army at every turn for months. I've heard, however, that the last straw was when they crossed what was to become Yellowstone National Park, just as then President Grant was visiting it. And he raised his nose from his whiskey glass and he said something like, "Who the heck are those people? I don't care how many it takes, get them." So they did, and they assigned a full regiment, 2,000 soldiers, and they finally tracked them down. They were only 30 miles from the Canadian border. They almost made it. But they sent them to Florida, and the same sad story continued. Anyway, this song is called Rolling Thunder, and I think you'll see why it's relevant today. It is time to stop your talking, bid your horses to be still. There we are waiting for a signal from the sentry on the hill. Hinmatu Yayaletkit slowly points the arrow in his hand. Milling horses pull together, warriors on the path again. We have not seen many white men since this troubled time began. We have treated them as brothers, giving freely what we can. Now they come in greater numbers, saying we must leave this land. leave the heaven-reaching forests home to us since time began. Watch the dust rise from our hoofbeats like a storm across the hill. We are warriors serving proudly in Matuiyayalet Kitswill. With the white man we have parleyed, it is time to take a stand to protect the earth, our mother, from the reach of greedy hands. Walk my feet, yet be a warrior. Cry my eyes, yet be a man. They have taken all our horses. We will never see the land. But I see Hin Matuiyayalet Kit riding off across the plain, calling out in times of trouble, bring us to the earth again. I see Hin Matuiyayalet Kit riding off across the plain, calling out to those who listen, bring us to the earth again. Thank you. In fact, indigenous people all over the world are warning us, from the Kogi in Colombia to shamans in Siberia to the Australian Aborigines, and they all say, watch out, Earth is a living being and you are killing her. Excuse me, this happens sometimes. I've used years of science and examination of my own attitudes to begin to get where many native cultures have been for thousands of years. But it's very hard to change thinking when we're already adults. I still think it's worth the struggle because the awareness of the earth is necessary to begin environmental action effectively. Without it, even if we are the best of liberals or the finest conservatives, we're always talking about ourselves. As Oren Lyon, faith keeper of the Turtle Clan of the Onondaga, said to the whole United Nations, there is a hue and cry here for human rights, but what of the rights of the natural world? Our discussion of our problems, even our environmental problems, almost always circle around human concerns, as if our culture is the real reason for everything else in the world. Our culture has been this way for millennia. Remember, there was a time when we believed that the whole universe rotated around the earth. This attitude that we humans are at the center of things still dies hard. When astrologers of old calculated the paths of the planets, they came out very complicated, like the path of Venus went like this, because they had to make them all go around the earth, including the sun. And then finally, after Galileo, when they plotted the paths of the planets, suddenly it all got very simple. In order to solve our ecological problems, I think we need to shift our thinking and see that humanity is actually part of a larger system. Then it will become much easier to see what we really need to do. This next song comes from an experience that you may have had either as an adult or a child. It's when two children come to the parent and say, he did it, no, she did it. And it's such a furious argument that you simply can't tell who started it. And I'm suggesting perhaps Mother Earth is looking at us the same way. So this song is called Arms Around Us All. When I got home, I shut the door. I really couldn't take much more. My kids were jumping on the floor. Then my cell phone rang. Somewhere far away from me, an old opossum in a tree. He's hunkered down so peacefully, gazing at us all. We're all in this together. every elm and elephant, every human too. We shout and fight and disagree. It's them that's always wrong, not me. Our mother waiting patiently, arms around us all. Build another shopping mall, big McMansion growing tall, drive a super highway through it all. But little root ends meet and touch, and tiny microbes eat their lunch, and fungus weaves a world around them underneath us all. We're all in this together. Every crow and cotton, every crow and coconut, every human too. We shout and fight and disagree. It's them that's always wrong, not me. Our mother waiting patiently, arms around us all. And if your life is just a bore, each day means 100 more. Your cares are caught in cubicles and screens. Somewhere on the open sea, a dolphin's jumping, swimming free. She's swimming upside down, blowing bubbles at us all. We're all in this together. Every loon and liverwort, every human too. Shout and fight and disagree. It's them that's always wrong, not me. Our mother waiting patiently, arms around us all. They're trying to hype a civil war. Everybody's keeping score. You've got to make someone to hate to be worth fighting for. When I want to criticize, I find that I can lift my eyes and watch a golden eagle soaring high above us all. Oh, we're all in this together. Every cow and cottonwood, every human too. We shout and fight and disagree. It's them that's always wrong, not me. Our mother waiting patiently, arms around us all. We humans think we do it all. Emails, x-rays, iPhones, call. Compared to Mother Earth, that isn't much. She makes the air, she breathes for you. She grows your heart, then beats it too. What was it that you said? We do, proud about it all. We're all in this together. Every fish and frog and fern and every human too. We shout and fight and disagree, but maybe someday we will see our mother waiting patiently underneath us all. High above us all. Gazing at us all, laughing at us all, arms around us all. This Grand Canyon that divides the believers in science, whose wagons are circled on one side of it, from an unruly band of New Age and nature spirits on the other side, is a dangerous division. Rationality and logic deny the importance of emotion and intuition, and vice versa. Myself, I'm inclined to go with the structure that the Native Americans and Aboriginal cultures are rooted in, which is their beliefs in the world are based on very broad and detailed observations of the world around them. They know a great deal about the animals, insects, plants, geography, and weather in their environment, in short, their ecology. And it's on that basis that they raise their eyes to the understanding and communication with the great system that's above them. These relationships we have in our industrial civilizations pretty much lost track of. There are many new ecological relations being researched. Their work of a hopefully growing number of specialist ecologists, but their work generally doesn't filter through to the general public. I'll be giving some of the scientific basis for my understanding of the living Earth soon, but for most of us, the challenge is only get enough of the ecological evidence to then reach for the emotional perception of Earth or nature as a single living being. First, we need to look in her direction, not just at jobs and cars and all the turmoil that we create between ourselves, but it's an emotional connection that we can reach for. That's why I've been writing music. Again, it's not about religion. It's about how to take in a very difficult and, I would say, revolutionary scientific idea. How do we take in that we're part of something? What does that greater whole even look like from the perspective of one single, very small part of it, like you and me? Why don't you sit over there? You won't see me here. It's over there. I'm the one who sees people coming in. So I'll repeat that. How do we take in that we are part of something? What does this greater whole that I'm talking about even look like for the perspective of one single, very small part of it, like you and me? So anyway, this song is called Heart of the Earth. There's a voice you can hear in the roar of the sea. There's a song to be heard on the wind in the trees. And it might take a while for it to come clear, but the heart of the earth is the voice that you hear. And it feels like the call of the wild, and it shines with the light in the eyes of a child, and it shines with the stars in the heavens above, and the heart of the earth is the motion of love. Fill your lungs with the air and hold it a while. It was breathed by a camel on the banks of the Nile. Got its oxygen back from the Amazon trees. It took the express from the Florida Keys. And it rises with the hawk to the sky, and it feels like that thrill when she catches your eye, and it shines with the stars in the heavens above, and the heart of the earth is the motion of love. Dig your toes in the dirt in any backyard, and you're part of the earth, whoever you are. The dirt runs under cities, under any wall, from the poles to the tropics, connecting us all. And it feels like waking up from a dream, and it fights like a salmon that's swimming upstream, and it shines with the stars in the heavens above, and the heart of the earth is the motion of love. Jesus was a gambler, Mohammed was the same. They went all in for love in playing the game. And the Buddha greets Moses over the sea. We'll be brothers and sisters eventually. And it cries out in the land of my birth. And it rides with the dawn as it circles the earth. And it shines with the stars in the heavens above. And the heart of the earth is the motion of love. And it cries out in the land of my birth. And it rides with the dawn as it circles the earth. And it shines with the stars in the heavens above. And the heart of the earth is the motion of love. The heart of the earth is the motion of love. Yes, the heart of the earth is the motion of love. Depending on where you're coming from, that song might sound kind of sentimental. Love is, as engineers would say, a squishy word. But I use the word love in this song in a very specific sense, as the movement of a process that includes, but is much larger than the human emotion of love. I'll put it simply. If one or two or more entities, be they like or unlike, atoms, animals, cosmic dust, or human beings, when they begin to interact in a stream of steady, supportive energy, they inevitably create things, real entities that are larger than the individuals involved, but still quite real. And the individuals maintain their own identity. Once you start looking for this process, you can see it everywhere in the world around you. From the action of lasers on that level, the atoms, they say they cooperate. To basketball teams, to flocks of birds and schools of fish, to corporations, to families, nation states, even the solar system and the galaxy. All of these are real entities because they are composed of cooperating parts. Now, I call it cooperation, but the word love works just as well. It took me some 400 plus pages and 150 illustrations to trace the action of cooperation through the origin of life, till you begin to see the living entity of Earth today, or Mother Nature as she is sometimes called. And I don't want to get into fighting a war about the right word to use. What really matters is what you can see and feel for yourself. And that may not even have a name for you. She's been a single entity right from the start of life, growing over billions of years, developing inside the complex interactive cycles that are now so interconnected that they literally beggar rational understanding. The cooperation of several trillion cells creates your body. And even that symphony of cooperation is impossible to conceive. If I say move and my hand moves, billions of cells have cooperated to create that motion. And I'm not even aware of them. In fact, that's the case. I'm not aware of them, and they probably are not aware of me on their own individual level. That's an aspect of cooperation. It creates wholes, and you and I are wholes, and we're not even aware of the cooperating parts that make us up. But look at the planets. They are individuals, they're planets, and they don't lose their identity, but together they create the solar system. Perhaps then you can imagine the being of the Earth, composed of quadrillions of individual microbes to mammals, cooperating in ecosystems, how that might create a separate identity above its parts, just as real as you and I, and for the same reason, cooperation. Talk about life, I'd like to start with the solar system, actually the birth of it. And the Hubble Space Telescope in the last few years has shown us these amazing images of what are called large molecular clouds, and they're brown, and they have these little points of light winking inside them, and they look like they're swept by energy of some cosmic kind. They look windswept, and well, we don't know what that is. And inside of there, it's the beginning of what's called a self-generating system. For some reason, and I won't really know why, the dust, which consists of helium and hydrogen mostly, and a lot of the elements of life, the amino acids, they're in there, carbon compounds, nanodiamonds, all the elements. And it pulls together, it starts to pull together, and the heat, eventually it starts to pull more and more in. The gravity then starts to pull all the dust together, and the heat of its own collapse heats it up by friction, and eventually it ignites the fusion process, and we have what's called the birth of a star. Now, for some reason, there's a disk of dust going around it. Why it's not a sphere, I don't know, but the disk going around it also condenses into individual planets, and they interact with each other. They gravitationally interact, and they begin to create this dance around them. It's called the solar system. Now, 50 years ago, astronomers would have said, that's an amazing thing we have called the solar system. I wonder if it happens anywhere else in the whole universe. We may be only ones. They said the same thing about life. And now with the Kepler Space Telescope, they've found more than 5,000 exoplanets. And they've concluded that probably 80% of the stars in the galaxy have planets going around them. So this thing I just told you is actually a very common occurrence. It's the standard model. It happens over and over again. In fact, everything you see when you walk outside at night, except for the planets, is formed by this same self-generating system. And it goes on. The Earth itself then pulled as a ball of dust. It condensed, and then the heavy stuff went to the middle, the iron and the nickel, and it melted, and then the iron silicates, and then the aluminum silicates, and then we sit at the surface of that, and kind of in the middle, the water and the carbon are all the medium weights, and above us is the atmosphere, oxygen and nitrogen, above that, ionosphere, above that, the charged particles of the Van Allen radiation belt, all making this beautiful spectrum of density. And we're in the middle of it, in a safe place, a relatively safe environment. And it was that place that the next stage in life happened. And life and water, mostly it's very random, but there are kinds of water called semi-crystalline water. And they're sheets of water, hexagonal sheets that stack up under the influence of infrared light. And this place creates a stable environment, and it's got a charge, a maintained electric charge. And that's a place where, again, there was a stable environment, a constant source of energy, and the molecules of life, the amino acids and things like that, got attracted to it, and they were in that place. They began another self-generating system. And I like to think of them as a choir because they had resonance, and particular resonance, and that resonance attracted other molecules of the same kind. And then once they joined the choir, it changed its resonance, and they asked for different molecules, but only ones that fitted. And that's the process, as I see it, of the beginning of life. Now, it's an incredibly long journey, and there's a lot of hand-waving and a lot of disagreement, and the only reason we're continuing the discussion is because we know it happened. We haven't a real clue of how we got to the first bacterium. It's so complicated that thousands of scientists have written many thousands of papers in the last several decades, and they still don't understand how one single bacterium, and E. coli is the one they usually research, how that works. But it did happen, and it was a cooperative process. Things pulled together, and this host of water, I'll say it again, is like, I call it a generous host. It protects things, and it provides them with nutrient. You can also say it's a mother. And life has gone through a succession of mothers. And every time there's a stage of life, it's the mother for the next stage. So And it's a cooperative process that's happened over, and it happens in the ocean. Well, no, I'm sorry, yeah, then the one cell became 2 cells, and then 4, and then 8, and then 32, and pretty soon they filled the whole ocean. And they began to interact with the gases of the atmosphere. And nowadays we know that methane and carbon dioxide both heat up the atmosphere. And so those are the thermostat. And they began to work with both of them. And together they balance the atmosphere, because we also know, to our detriment, that CO2 is a blanket. So it's like putting a blanket on your bed that's this thick. And methane is like putting a blanket on your bed that's about that thick. So slowly they dealt with these 2 gases in the atmosphere and controlled the temperature and actually lowered it over the course of hundreds of millions of years. And life has been in charge of the thermostat ever since on the surface of our planet. It's the basic cooperative arrangement that life has with our planet. It also controls the atmosphere, because then they started generating oxygen at a certain point and maintain it now at a certain level. And then the next step was one cell came to live inside of another one. It's another cooperative arrangement. And a woman named Lynn Margulis was a scientist at the University of Massachusetts out in Amherst, and she championed this theory and ultimately changed the thinking. Because up to that point, evolutionary thinking had been, it's survival of the fittest, it's competition, get over it. And she established that no, it wasn't in this case. This was cooperative. It was a cooperative arrangement that created the next kind of cell. And in fact, once you look, and that's what I'm doing, is look at life as a cooperative process, it all begins to make sense in a different way. This cell then grew and became 1,000 times larger than a bacterium. And it's about as complicated as New York City relative to one post office town up in Vermont. And these cells, eventually, that's what we're made out of, all of our cells. And then eventually 2 of them got together, and 3 and 4, and they created multicellular beings. Once again, it's a cooperative process. And they're always working with each other. They're always working in ecosystems. And within this cooperative framework of the bacterium. And that system created in the ocean a form of life, an ecosystem. And slowly, it was the mother for the next one. Another stage arose 100 million years later, and then another stage. Each one of them, they rose and fell together because they were an ecological entity. And then their life reached out on the land, and we've had 5 stages on the land, 5 faces of life. And I know it's hard, let's say that it's hard to imagine the dinosaurs as anybody's mother, but they were the mother of the stage that we're in now. And I mean, the dinosaurs as a stage, they had their own plants, the cycads and the conifers. They had their own insects, and underneath their feet, they were keeping things going for these little mammals scurrying around, and the flowering plants, and a whole set of insects that, as you know, flowering plants need particular insects to pollinate them, and they need mammals to spread their seeds. So they became an entity, and that entity had been growing for 100 million years before the comet hit that struck out the dinosaurs. So it would have happened anyway. It was not like, anyway. So that stage took over, and it's the one we're in now. And it is exponentially more complex than the dinosaur world. That's the thing about it. It's so much more cooperative, the world we live in now. It's more cooperative, and out of that cooperation emerges intelligence. And it may sound like a strange thing to say, but think about how many plants and bacteria and single-celled animals there are that make decisions about life. They have mind, they move, they make decisions, but they don't have brains. Mammals have brains, but nothing else does. Everything makes decisions. And what happens is, as close as they've been able to get, is that intelligence emerges from complex interactions of either chemical cycles or cells. And in this case, complex ecosystems, again, give rise to this emergent intelligence called nature. But why is it then that we can't see this? It's strange that we cannot see this intelligence. But then again, there's lots of things we can't see. I mean, we can't see X-rays, we can't see ultraviolet light, we can't see bacteria. I mean, your hand, I don't want to, I'm sorry to say this, but your hand probably has 100 million bacteria on it right now, and you can't even see them. Maybe you've washed your hands, so you've only got 10 million. But, lots of things are invisible. In other words, another good example relative to the Earth is that the United States, now, we sit here in this room, we might look at each other. Where's the United States? We're in the United States. But can you see it? Where is it? So just because something, and don't you dare deny that it exists, it does. Just because something is invisible doesn't mean that we can't see it. And unfortunately, the invisibility of Mother Earth has, in our culture, has created most of the environmental problems that we have. And it has something to do with the psychology, I think, that we humans are really all that matters. Still, this dark cloud of global warming today, the sixth extinction and the loss of our soil, has a silver lining. I would say even it's gold, because it forces us to become aware of this larger entity. And I think that that's the beginning of a new age, because our culture is like a 2-year-old. It's breaking things, 2-year-olds. It's breaking things. It's totally self-centered. It's unaware. It thinks that its mother is just going to keep on. It doesn't even know she's there in a way. We just keep on thinking that we're going to keep supplied with food and with lots of trees to cut down, and the ocean is endless, and we keep breathing. We don't worry about where anything comes from. Now, of course, native cultures are different. They're the adults in the room in this case. And as we grow, we realize that we have responsibilities and a role to play in that world of our mother. And as our problems mount, all of humanity is becoming more and more face to face with this system. There's an African-American preacher whose name is Rev Dele, whom I like. She says, in all our discussions about justice, and she's a 5th-generation activist, so she's talking about social justice and the environment, we need to give Mother Nature a seat at the table, not just as a table decoration. We're in a good place now to unite all of the fractured people and societies on this earth. It's the only way that we're going to be able to deal with our problems. For instance, look at the fisheries. All the fish stocks are in decline. The only way to stop that is if all the nations get together and say, we're going to regulate this. And you can't, it's got to be a law, just like any law in the United States. It's got teeth. You can't just go against it. Because if some country says, well, we're going to take a pass on that, they will take the last fish out of the ocean. In China, they breathe the air from our trees, and vice versa. It's going to be a messy process. It already is. But ideals of social justice spring naturally from the awareness that everyone contributes to and depends on the larger whole. And the whole depends on us too, and depends on the way we treat it. Aggression, oppression, and environmental degradation have walked together for centuries. Now justice, regeneration, and the awareness of the earth can be seen growing together. So this song, it's called Nature's Dream. Arms of Mother Nature came weaving through my dreams. She pulled me from the turbulence of tumbled braided streams. She took me to the mountain across the crowded plain and filled me with a vision of the earth alive again. Burkina Faso, Africa, there's a man who's planting trees. His mattock swings in rhythm, and he plants them on his knees. His fingers hold a landscape that is turning into dust. But his faith is in the ancient ways he holds in sacred trust. Oh, Mother, we've forgotten you. The consequence is clear. We threaten the creation of 400 million years, but your spirit moves among us from heart to beating heart. And each microbe has a purpose, and each person plays a part. We traveled with the sunrise, my feet in inky night, across the rolling ocean in the rosy-fingered light. With cod and tuna teeming now where common law protects a third of all the ocean from the trawlers and the nets. The Pacific Ocean rising like a river to the sky, to water coastal forests as the fog goes drifting by, to rise again from redwoods they're no longer cutting down, and fall as blessed rain on California's dying ground. Oh, Mother, we've forgotten you, the consequence is clear. We threaten a creation of 400 million years, but your spirit moves among us from heart to beating heart. And each microbe has a purpose, and each person plays a part. I saw the cities blooming with trees on every street, and each child knew the feeling of the earth beneath their feet. And native plants and insects laid a living carpet down that traveled every highway and cradled every town. The Middle East grew quiet, left the oil in the ground, and took to farming sunlight for the countries all around. And sub-Saharan Africans decided they would stay and tend their flocks and farms in the regenerative way. The regenerative way. Oh, Mother, we've forgotten you, the consequence is clear. We threaten the creation of 400 million years, but your spirit moves among us from heart to beating heart. And each microbe has a purpose, and each person plays a part. Australian Aborigine and the Kogi made it through, and the Sami and Lakota and the Yanomama too. Indigenous survivors, their voices growing strong. We're leaders now and thanking you in ritual and song. In ritual and song. Nature took me higher, and I saw her from afar, and I heard the joyful melody she offers to the stars. And she wanted me to feel this and for you to feel it too, and keep her smile inside you and make her dream come true. Oh, Mother, you created us, your face is coming clear. We are children of the nurture of 400 million years, and your spirit moves among us from heart to caring heart. And each microbe has a purpose, and each person plays a part. Each person plays a part. Each person plays a part. Thank you. Finding our way back into nature is not simply poetic talk. It means solving our problems, like stopping global warming, by putting the excess carbon dioxide that's now in the air back into the ground. It means regenerating ecosystems and naturally cooling regions that are now becoming desert, bringing back our insects, birds, bats, and bees, and saving the soil. It means growing abundant, healthy food for everyone and sharing it. It all starts with becoming aware that there is a larger system around us that works with cooperation and healthy competition. We take from it and we give back to it. You breathe in and then you give back. First and most important consequence of becoming aware of larger systems right now is that we can heal the atmosphere. We must, of course, stop using fossil fuels like yesterday. But it's also necessary to take the extra carbon dioxide that's now causing global warming out of the air, and the best place to put it is into regenerating ecosystems, because they're built from carbon. They will reverse global warming. There's such despair and heartache right now about the future, and maybe this proposition might seem at first incredible or even impossible. Yet a lot of hard work has been done in fields, deserts, and oceans across the world. There are 5 great ecozones where life lives on our planet: the forests and jungles, the rangelands, the agricultural lands, coastal wetlands, and of course, the 70% of the planet that's the ocean. Every one of these systems is degraded, and there are people who are working in each one to bring them back. Techniques vary. On the agricultural lands, which are the bottom lands, the most fertile soil, it's called regenerative agriculture, and it works with techniques like no-till agriculture, increasing biodiversity, cover crops, and stopping the use of chemical inputs like pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, which create quick yields but kill the soil. The net result of regenerative agriculture is that the soil, this living being, the flesh of Mother Nature, grows, and it's made out of carbon, and that carbon comes from the air. The more the soil grows, the less carbon dioxide there is in the air. The soil is so much more than just dirt. It's a busy, living metropolis, whole kingdoms, really, billions of cooperating organisms. A handful of good soil contains more bacteria than there are stars in our galaxy, in one handful of good soil. And they're not just milling around in chaos. They're all organized into different consortia, essentially cooperative companies of bacteria. And they produce, some of them anyway, produce nutrients that plants need. There is a cooperative company that creates zinc in a form that plants can use it. There's another one that produces copper. There's one that produces iron and phosphorus and sulfur and nitrogen and so on. All the bacteria in the soil are organized into these and other consortia and mediated by the fungal networks. Maybe you've been hearing about the Wood Wide Web. Well, it's everywhere. The fungi are kind of middle management. They bring the nutrients that I just talked about to the roots of the plants, and the plants then give the fungi back sugars that they take back to the companies. And the companies actively compete with each other. They negotiate for the best price, the most sugar they can get for the least amount of zinc. I mean, it's a very active economy in the soil. And the fungi communicate also between all the plants, along with all the other levels that I don't have time to talk about of this vast cloaking layer that covers the land that we call dirt. And I wrote a song called Dirt. Work the soil for the seeds, digging up invasive weeds, stretch and squeeze my fingers till they hurt. Sweating down another line, eggs and bacon on my mind, digging in the mystery of dirt. Plant another seedling in the ground, shovel up some compost and spread it all around. Sift it on the soil like you're seasoning a stew. And she says, I'll grow a juicy melon just for you. I penetrate another world past matted roots, and earthworms curled, 1 trillion microbes lie beneath my spade. They give the plants their precious food, but microbes need their breakfast too. They're working at their jobs and getting paid. Plant another seedling in the ground, shovel up some compost and spread it all around. Sift it on the soil like you're seasoning a stew. And she says, I'll grow some luscious cherries just for you. Little sapling starts to grow and sucks that sap up from below, till we face each other both alert. Then it goes and grows so high its branches nearly brush the sky. I know heaven has its roots deep in the dirt. Plant another seedling in the ground, shovel up some compost and spread it all around. Sift it on the soil like you're seasoning a stew. And she says, I'll grow a mighty maple tree for you, and I'll grow some luscious cherries just for you, and I'll grow a juicy melon maybe too. The dirt is a structured, cooperative, living being. Actually, it's the tissue of a larger being. Regenerating healthy soils is a win-win-win-win. Good soil produces nutrient-rich food. Healthy soils draw down carbon dioxide from the air. Healthy soils absorb extra rain so that they regulate floods, which are more common these days. Healthy soils then contain water, and there are fewer droughts. Healthy soils emit water and bacteria through the plants growing in them and create clouds and rain. Healthy soils cool the whole region, just like the trees and native plants in our cities will make them more livable. Another great ecozone of our planet is the forests and the jungles. They mostly need to be managed properly and not cut down, but instead replanted in their former biodiversity. The solution to our problems really isn't just about planting lots and lots of trees, because there are places where trees belong and places where they don't. And we can't have a one-size-fits-all solution where everything is okay if we just plant lots of trees. All the great regions of life on Earth are degraded, and each one needs regeneration in its own way. There's a great website called Drawdown, which works with all the ways that we can rebalance the atmosphere and regenerate. This is my take on that word because, well, I thought of the word at the same time as they did. And not to take away from it, but what we're trying to do is find a simple word, and drawdown is a great one for otherwise ungainly soil carbon sequestration, which really doesn't roll off the tongue. And I'd like to see it happen all at once. When we finally say goodbye to oil, and we keep the coal and methane in the ground, we will pull the carbon from the air in the great drawdown, in the rolling of the rangelands, in the oceans and the trees, in the way we plant and grow our food, we'll win our victory. And the sun shines and the rain falls down, and the plants, they build a kingdom underground, and the world below our feet keeps growing year to year, and there's plenty of room for carbon here. Are you fearful of the tempest and the rising of the sea and the waves of climate refugees that may not have to be. If we turn our willing hearts and minds to the systems of our earth, we can seek for our solutions in the cradle of our birth. And the sun shines and the rain falls down, and the plants, they build a kingdom underground, and the world below our feet keeps growing year to year, and there's plenty of room for carbon here. Will you listen to grandmother when she whispers in your dreams that this world of smartphones, plastic and glass isn't all it seems? Draw them down, your mighty engines, and the headlong rush to wealth, and let nature rain her bounty down as we nurse her back to health. And the sun shines and the rain falls down, and the plants, they build a kingdom underground, and the world below our feet keeps growing year to year, and there's plenty of room for carbon here. Yes, there's plenty of room for carbon here. So it's another example of this regenerative work. Semi-arid rangelands are something like 30% of the land on the surface, the dry land, and they're too dry to grow crops on, and they're all degraded, pretty much, due to overgrazing and other poor management techniques. The approach in the next song is called holistic management, and it manages cattle on these rapidly desertifying lands to regenerate the ecosystem. About 100 million years ago, the flowering grasses evolved in a great new system that carpeted these semi-arid rangelands. The grasses did not evolve alone. They were part of a system. They evolved with insects that pollinated them, and herbivores like bison and the ancestors of cattle, and dung beetles and birds and snakes and all kinds of other things. And together they create a system called the grassland. And out west, if you've driven past them, they look so uninteresting. They're just flat. But they are so incredibly complicated. They're an amazing system. And you can't take one big part of them away and expect them to work. It's like taking a gear out of a clock. So properly managed herbivores are part of the grasslands. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you don't have to eat them. But herbivores are part of the system that we must regenerate because they're such a big part of the planet. Even in vegetarian India, the great new regenerative agriculture movement in Andhra Pradesh, it's amazing. Millions of farmers, they're all using cattle urine and dung to fertilize the soil. I think the view that unites all of us that care about the earth is that we must spring the cattle from prison. Sorry, I get emotional. I have to slow down. Cows are cooperative animals. Like all mammals, they have emotions. They feel pain, they have families, and they have culture, handed down from generation to generation. Right now, they're being treated like meat. They've packed into narrow places, spending a significant part of their lives jammed together in feedlots, pumped full of chemicals and hormones, eating food they're not supposed to eat, emitting large amounts of methane, and most importantly, being deprived of their it's not humanity, it's the wrong word, but their family relationships and their individuality. When they are released from captivity and put back onto the grasslands where they belong, they'll live as they're supposed to, and they'll contribute to the solution to global warming instead of helping to cause it. We'll need to eat less beef probably because there won't be as many cattle. but they will help to build up the soil in the rangelands, take carbon dioxide out of the air, and reestablish the biodiversity of prairies and cooling the atmosphere. Healthy grasslands with cattle produce far more hydroxyl radical than is needed to neutralize all the methane that the cows produce, but only if they're in their own ecosystem. This is not just a wild idea. It's been practiced for decades now on over 30 million acres across the world, particularly in Zimbabwe and in Texas. And it's nice to know that there's something that unites both these places. So this song is called Long Lost Child. When the grass grows green in Texas and the streams flow free and clear, and the pronghorn and the prairie dog and the longhorn steer help nature take a big deep breath, and if we turn our backs on oil, she'll breathe the carbon from the air and put it in the soil. Hey, can you hear them singing in Africa? Timbang Bombay Ranch, Sianyanga Village too. From Texas to Australia, mile on growing mile, when nature takes us in her arms like a long lost child. Well, the rangelands of our planet lie silent and bare. For centuries their soil has just vanished in the air. But when we play the harmony of hoofs to soil and rain, the rangeland plays the melody again. Hey, can you hear them singing in Africa? Dimbangombe Ranch, Sianyanga Village too. From Texas to Australia, mile on growing mile, when nature takes us in her arms like a long lost child. Go soaring with an eagle, see the rangeland down below, where moving herds of cattle help the grass begin to grow. Then rise on beating wings above the country of your birth and greet the living spirit of this great round earth. Hey, can't you hear them singing in Africa? Dimbangombe Ranch, Sianyanga Village too. From Texas to Australia, mile on growing mile, when nature takes us in her arms like a long lost child. That would be a fine feeling, wouldn't it? To feel that nature was holding us in her arms like a long-lost child. Cities around the world have lost touch with their natural base. And so we urban and suburban dwellers perhaps think that the solution to our problems that I've just been talking about are the responsibility of farmers and land managers. But we in the cities eat their food, we make choices when we buy it, and we also mostly control the government. Our representatives write most of the laws, like the Farm Bill, and apportion most of the money. If we are cut off from the awareness of the great entity that we are part of, we will not realize that it's up to us to change the system. Politicians are pretty much like sailboats, and we are the wind. There's a number of grassroots organizations active. I'm part of 350 down in Lowell mostly, Pueblo Verde here in Lawrence, Sierra Club, Mother is Out Front. Isn't that a great title? Mother is Out Front, and they really are. They're taking on methane use in Massachusetts. Elders Climate Action. There's a lot of ways, and this is actually where change has been coming from for a number of years. So this song is called Help Wanted. Mother Nature needs your help today. Don't stand back and watch her die. She's fading in 1,000 ways, shutting down before our eyes. Now is not the time to be cast down or to fall into despair. There's people working hard in every town. There are solutions in the air. We need to know that she is there. Hear her calling in a dream. You can reach her with a simple prayer. Find her walking by a stream. They're fighting pipelines as the planet warms. Time to draw down the machine. They're fixing gas leaks, growing urban farms. Time to make our cities green. Nature wants to draw the carbon down in the oceans and the trees. From the air into the living ground, as long as we begin to see, we need to see that she is there. Hear her calling in a dream. You can reach her with a simple prayer. Find her walking by a stream. There's a spirit to this turning earth, greater than its moving parts. Between all the creatures of her birth, in between all of our hearts, there are things that only she can do. She can give us all we need. Find that place where she's alive in you. Plant the new world with this seed. We need to feel that she is there. Hear her calling in a dream. You can reach her with a simple prayer. Find her walking by a stream. Mother Nature needs your help today. Actually, for suburban homeowners like me, there is an even more direct responsibility to this greater system because all of us homeowners are stewards of our yards. And even if you rent, you can still be part of town management. 83% of the United States, in fact, is privately owned. And that's basically all the best land. As much as we love our national and state parks, they are nowhere near enough natural environment to maintain nature in our country. Most of it has been cut up into small pieces and planted, either with non-native food crops or with our lovely gardens and lawns, also not native. This has consequences ecologically. 30% of the birds have slipped away since I bought my house, along with the bats, the fireflies, the butterflies, and it seems most of the insects. Planting native plants in our yards and our towns is the only way forward. And you can even join the Homegrown National Park if you look it up online. This is an organization started by Douglas Tallamy, who's an entomologist from Delaware. And in this song, they like it. It's called Homegrown National Park. There's a desperate situation in America today. Our lovely Mother Nature is about to slip away. We put her on a diet, she's down to skin and bones. They're cutting off the best parts, keeping up with Mr. Jones. And there's really nothing lovely in a lawn. They might as well be concrete, there's just nothing going on. We fill them full of chemicals and mow them all day long. There is really nothing lovely in a lawn. Well, we don't have a lot of land, though we've both been working hard. It might just be a postage stamp compared to other yards. But we'll put that stamp on a letter and we'll write it like a poem. And spell it out in native plants, saying, Mama, please come home. Oh, come on home, we need you, we won't make it if you're gone. We need your pollination and the rhythm of your song. And if we all would write a letter, things might not get so dark. Make a homegrown national park. We've dressed her up in fancy clothes from her nose down to her knees. But I love her when her clothes are off and she can grow just like she please. With black-eyed Susan, goldenrod, opossum, and the deer, shaded by a big old oak that will stand 500 years. And she'll bring us back our butterflies, she'll bring us back the and the birds will sing a chorus every morning in the trees. And if you let her in your garden, you'll find her in your heart, in the Homegrown National Park. And if you let her in your garden, you'll find her in your heart, in the Homegrown National Park. Let's make a homegrown national park. You know, thank you. You know, we all come from individual places. Most of us from somewhere on this turtle island. But maybe our jobs or our families have moved us around so much from place to place that we don't really have the feeling anymore that we live right now where we belong. You know, I was raised overseas, and I found the hardest thing for me is to actually take in my heart where I am right now. And I've lived here in New England for most of my life. So this is a song about sense of place, and maybe you already know where you belong, which is great. But anyway, it's something I'm working on. In this song, the pueblo mentioned is Taos Pueblo. And the mountain that rises above it is Mount Walker, we call it anyway. The song is called Mountain. The mountain only seems to be asleep. The children in a waking dream she keeps. The people of the Pueblo feel it too. Mountain needs protecting, so she folds them in her dreaming. They are born out of her waters, that shining crystal blue. circled through the cities of the plains, always picking up and moving on again. By the time I got to Taos, I was through. Now I stand here making coffee, but it's really not about me. You don't choose the mountain chooses you. Last night I had a dream that I could fly, a sable-winged raven in the sky, soaring over granite ridge and tree. With steady gaze I took it in. I was the eyes of the mountain, but was I dreaming of the mountain, or was the mountain dreaming me? Circle till the cities look the same, or maybe life starts feeling like a game. Wherever on the continents you roam, from the tall grass of Nebraska to the Mississippi Delta, from the vivid emerald jungle to New England's glacial tumble. When she finds you in her dreaming, you'll know that you are home. So it's about beginning to feel that you are part of it. I can say that I'm part of it 100 times, but really feeling that is completely different. Good luck. Where do you and I stand in all this? I've implied that there are important things that we have to do, but really the very beginning is not to buy solar panels or an electric car, but to change how we feel about this world, to change our perspective. So I'll leave you with this song called Didn't Mama Tell You? If you want your mama Earth to smile, tell her that you care. Say you know she cares for you, and you know she's there. Even when it keeps on snowing or when the skies are gray. Thank her for the air you breathe and the food you ate today. Didn't Mama tell you she is always there? Didn't Mama place this planet in your care? Swimming in the water or singing in the trees? Didn't Mama give you these? If you want your mama to be happy, look around each day. You know you'll always see her working in some familiar way. Maybe you will hear her singing between the rows and bees. robin and the worm between you and me. Didn't Mama tell you she is always there? Didn't Mama place this planet in your care? Swimming in the water or singing in the trees? Didn't Mama give you these? Maybe if you thank your mama each day and every night, she just might find a place for you and tell you it's alright. And who knows if you hear her singing, talking deep inside of you, she just might tell you where it hurts and what you need to do. Didn't Mama tell you she's always there? Didn't Mama place this planet in your care? Swimming in the water or singing in the trees? Didn't Mama give you these? Didn't Mama give you these? Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming. So it's a pleasure to be able to put it all together. I know I sing all these songs that people know over the years, but it's really good to be able to explain kind of what I've been thinking about. So thank you very much for coming, and I really appreciate it, and I hope you've had a good Earth Day.
And thank you, Neil, from One Broadway Collaborative. If anybody would like to find out more shows going on, including Neil going to open mic every week almost.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. We have events online at onebroadway.org. That's onebroadway.org. And we are a nonprofit arts organization. And if you would like to make a donation, you can do that on the website or here in the box over by the door. So thanks very much, and thank you, Neil. That was a great show. And for those of you on the live stream, this will be up for you to watch again if you missed the beginning or something. And everybody have a good weekend.